Bumpy's rat. Thought he'd vanished for 3 years, until the blade appeared at his door. He'd been gone for 3 years, 3 whole years of looking over his shoulder less and less each day. 3 years of telling himself the city had finally forgotten his name. He was wrong. New York, February 1949. A cold Tuesday night in a walk-up tenement on 139th Street. The radiator clanked like it always did. Boiled coffee smelled stale in the kitchenette. The radio played low, Billie Holiday singing about gloom and rain. He sat in his worn armchair, newspaper folded to the racing results, a half-empty glass of rye on the side table. Life wasn't flashy anymore, but it was quiet. Safe. That's what he told himself every night before sleep. 3 years earlier, he'd made the kind of choice that changes everything. He'd been close to Bumpy Johnson, close enough to see the ledgers, close enough to handle the photographs, the ones that showed handshakes no one was supposed to see, close enough to know that a single copy in the wrong hands could bring down empires. And he'd made a copy, not for money at first, for insurance. A little voice in his head said, "One day you might need leverage." Then someone from the docks came knocking, offered cash, real cash, enough to disappear. He took it, sold the names, sold the dates, sold the proof. When word got back to Harlem, he ran. Didn't pack much, just a suitcase, a new name, and the conviction that 3 years was long enough for the streets to move on. He got a job in the garment district, kept his head down, cut his hair different, stopped going to the old clubs, stopped talking about the old days. For 3 years no one came looking, no late-night calls, no shadows in the hallway, no familiar faces on the subway. He started to breathe easier, started to believe he'd actually gotten away with it. Until that Tuesday night. The knock was soft, almost polite. One single rap on the door. Not the heavy fist of a collector, not the urgent bang of a neighbor. Just one quiet knock, like someone who knew you'd open. He froze. The radio kept singing. Billie's voice cracked on a high note. He told himself it was nothing, a drunk on the wrong floor, a delivery for upstairs. But his heart started pounding anyway. He stood slowly, walked to the door on quiet feet, looked through the peephole. The hallway was empty, just the flickering bulb and the faded wallpaper. He waited. Nothing. Then he saw it. A plain white envelope sliding under the door. Slow. Deliberate. It stopped halfway into the room, and something inside caught the light. Steel. Cold. Clean. Steel. He knew what it was before he picked it up. A straight razor. Closed, but polished to a mirror shine. No note, no writing on the envelope, just the blade. Sitting there on his worn linoleum floor like it belonged. His hand started shaking, not from cold, from memory. He remembered Bumpy Johnson's voice. Low, calm, always in control. He remembered the way Bumpy looked at people who crossed him, not angry, just patient. Like a man who knew time was on his side. 3 years. He'd thought 3 years was enough. But Harlem doesn't forget. Bumpy doesn't forget. The blade wasn't there to kill him. Not yet. It was there to remind him. You're not hidden. You're not safe. You're not forgiven. He picked up the envelope with fingers that barely worked. The razor was heavy. Real. The handle was mother of pearl, worn smooth from years of use. He knew that handle. He'd seen it before. In Bumpy's hand, years ago, when a message needed sending without words. He sat back down in the chair. The radio had moved on to a commercial. His glass of rye trembled as he drank. Memories flooded back. The night he made the copy. The fear in his gut when the dock man paid him. The train out of Penn Station at dawn. The first night in this apartment, listening for footsteps that never came. Until now. He looked at the door, waited for the next knock. It didn't come. That was worse, because it meant they weren't in a hurry. They knew where he was. They'd always known, or they'd just found him. Either way, the message was clear. 3 years wasn't long enough. The blade was the invitation. Come back, fix this, or wait for the next visit. And the next one wouldn't be so polite. He thought about running again, packing the suitcase, catching a bus south, changing his name one more time, but he knew it wouldn't matter. Bumpy Johnson didn't send a blade across town for nothing. He sent it because the debt was due, and debts like that don't vanish. They wait, quiet, patient, like a razor under a door on a cold February night. He put the blade on the table, stared at it for a long time. Then he picked up the phone, dialed a number he hadn't called in 3 years. A voice answered on the third ring. He didn't say his name. He didn't need to. Just one sentence. "Tell him I'll come in." Silence on the other end. Then, "Tomorrow. Midnight. The usual place." Click. He hung up, looked at the blade again, wrapped it carefully in the envelope, put it in his coat pocket. Tomorrow he would walk back into Harlem, back to the tables, back to the ledgers, back to the man whose trust he'd sold for a handful of cash and 3 years of borrowed time. He didn't know what Bumpy would do. Take the copies, make him work them off, put a scar on his face as a reminder, or something worse. But he knew one thing. The quiet was over. The 3 years were up, and the blade at his door had said everything that needed saying. In Harlem, some messages don't need words, they just need steel, and time, and a man who remembers your name. Even after 3 years, even when you thought you'd vanished, you never really vanish. Not from a man like Bumpy Johnson. You just get a warning first, delivered quiet, under the door, in the form of a blade that catches the light, and changes everything, forever.